Okay, are we all ready to customer voice?
Yes.
Woo!
Big fan.
Amazing, good. So good morning, welcome, greetings. This is Customer Voice, the Campus app. You can open your surveys. My name is Areti. Oh, let's try that again. My name is Areti. I'm a lead consultant for Redspire. We're part of Incremental Group, for those of you that know Incremental. I've been a consultant for a few years now, mainly Dynamics 365 CE and the Power Platform. And I've worked in a number of sectors, done a number of projects. Before that, I was on the client side, being a Dynamics 365 Systems Manager. Not a technical person, purely on the configuration functional side of things. So the fact that I have been able to create what I have is testament to how easy it is, she says. This is my LinkedIn profile as well there. Feel free to connect if you want to have updates on mainly releases and other things as well. I'm also a big fan of GIFs, which you will see in a minute. So thank you to our sponsors. Before we do anything else, you'll hear all of us say that, but it's a free event. Without them, we wouldn't be able to be here today. Those are our headline sponsors, and we've also got our gold, silver, and supporting sponsors. It takes a lot of people to put this together, so thank you to them, because without them, we would be on our sofas in pajamas. Okay, so customer voice, what is it, and what is it used for, and why is it wonderful? In the middle of the pandemic, for the demonstration today, I became a restaurant manager, fictitiously. I have a restaurant called The Terrace, which was established this year, and I'm managing it, and we've got great rooftop views, we've got friendly staff, we have wonderful food, or so I think, because the problem we have is that our bookings are decreasing. We're not getting as many people coming in, and our percentage of repeat customers is going down as well. So clearly something's wrong, and I don't know what. So to figure out what is happening, I want to ask my patrons for feedback. And this is where customer voice comes in. For those of you that don't know much about it, it is a feedback management tool. It allows you to create surveys. You can personalize them, you can brand them, you can configure them in a lot of different ways. You can send invites in a number of ways as well to get responses back. And there's some good reporting and analytics for the responses as well. So I'll give you a bit of an overview of that for The Terrace. For those that have used Microsoft Forms Pro before, Customer Voice is the rebranded version of Forms Pro. And I think that was, if I'm not mistaken, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe it was rebranded. So if you have remnants of that in your mind, this will be familiar for that reason. More importantly, Customer Voice is integrated with other Dynamics 365 apps. Good example is marketing. If any of you are using it in the room and you've got customer journeys, you can say, if that person responds to an email, send them a survey and see how they respond. Power Automate is another great one. So if you are, for example, wanting to send a survey when the case is closed, when an order is fulfilled, when something goes wrong, you can actually do that as well. And Power Apps is what I'm going to be picking out today. So you can use Power Apps and get access to the surveys through Power Apps as well. And the final one, Power BI. You can take the data from Customer Voice, export it, put it into Power BI, and do lots of wonderful things with it. Okay. For those technically minded, this is how Customer Voice works behind the scenes. You can create a project where you can group your surveys and your reporting for the surveys together. So I have a project for The Terrace. And you can distribute the survey out to people. What Customer Voice uses behind the scenes to do that is Dynamics 365 marketing email services. You don't have to pay for that, it's just what it uses in the background. And when you respond to a survey or anyone responds to the survey, those responses get analyzed by Azure Cognitive Services, and then the analytics come back up to Customer Voice. All of that data that gets created gets stored on the bottom layer, which is the wonderful Dataverse or Common Data Service, as it used to be known. I had a look for an updated version there. Okay, so before I go into my demo and show you how this all works for our wonderful restaurant, a bit on pricing, if anyone is interested. Customer voice is included if you have any of these Dynamics 365 products. If you have them, you can use it. It does include 2,000 survey responses per tenant per month, which depending on your requirements, that might be more than enough. If it's not, you can buy additional ones. I'll come on to that in a minute. In terms of standalone, it will cost you about £150 if you want to have it and you don't have any of the options on the left, or you just don't have a Dynamics 365 subscription at all. So that's the pricing for customer voice. In terms of additional responses, if you need them, £75 per month, sold in packs of 1,000. So you can actually increase them as needed. Food for thought.
Can I just ask a
Yes,
quick question about that? Am I right in thinking that that's a bit flexible? So in a month, if you went 2,200, you'd probably get away with it. But the month after, you might go down below at 2,000. Are we allowed to say that out loud?
I would imagine it's not so stringently followed that if you go over 2,000, Microsoft sends you an email and goes, no.
Stop.
Yeah, stop right now, don't use this product. I would imagine there's a little bit of leeway, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Okay, let's go into the interesting bit, which is the demo. Right, let's come out of this.
I see they sorted you out with a nice table.
Yeah, I'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah, there's no out-of-the-box app for customer voice, is there? There's only the customer voice interface. It doesn't have its own apps.
That is correct. It
That's the
doesn't.
challenge, isn't it?
That is the challenge, and that's where potentially Canvas apps can come in.
Yeah.
So a bit of a demo on customer voice itself, so what's available out of the box, so to speak, and then we'll talk about apps. If you're just getting started, you can go to customervoice.microsoft.com and you can actually get started and set it up and go. And what I mean by that is you can see the little get started button just here. That is useful if you want to have a play around with it. You can also start a trial on the Microsoft Customer Voice website if you'd rather do that, of course. You do have quite a lot of nice templates here that you can use. They come with a pre-built survey based on best standards and things like that, which you can customize. So it's quite good to have a look at them in their different scenarios. Or if you don't want any of that, that's cool too. You can do a blank one, which is what I have done for my restaurant. So if I go back, I have a couple of projects in here. The Terrace, my wonderful restaurant, is in here in this project. And this is the wonderful survey I have that goes out to my customers. So you can see I've branded it in our wonderful logo and dark green brand color. And what I have is a very basic, simple survey, because they're the best. I have a few questions. How would you rate the ambiance, the atmosphere of the restaurant? Have you got that right? How would you rate the food? How would you rate the service? And finally, how was your overall experience of the terrace? And what I've done with that final question there is I have linked it to a customer satisfaction score, so I can see how it's tracking over time. And finally, I've got some optional comments, if anyone wants to talk about particularly how bad the food was. And we've got some post-survey messages as well, so customer voice allows you to effectively send a different message on completion of the survey depending on questions. Yeah.
I think it'd be really nice to make it really easy for customers to give something expressive, and I think on an app it's kind of hard to type that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it would be lovely to allow people to leave a voice note and kind of go like speech to text and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is that possible? Can you do anything with it?
I wonder if it is. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Does anyone in the room?
You can attach a document, so you can probably, you might be able to attach an audio file, but it doesn't take the voice.
But yeah, at the moment.
I don't know if it's the hunter, but on the roadmap.
Yeah, I've not seen that yet, but it's a great idea, and I agree, it's much easier to just record. So with post-survey messages, they can be different based on an answer to a question. So what I've done here is, if the overall score is less than 3 stars, rather than say, thank you very much, you help us improve our restaurant, which wouldn't be much appreciated, I say, oh dear, we're sorry to have let you down this time. So a little bit of customization, and you can also customize the footer if you want to add legal text and things like that in there. So I've just put something basic there just to explain that the survey results only go to the manager, I myself. You can customize this pretty heavily. There's a lot of options here. So you can have satisfaction metrics, advanced logic on branching questions and surveys going on to other surveys and, inception style things. We could talk about that for an hour. Personalization itself on the survey, so you can have variables, so you can put the person's name in the survey, your, restaurant establishment's company's name in there as well, so you can personalize it heavily. You can have it in different languages if that's something you want to do. You can of course change the branding, and you can also change the formatting. Things like, if you don't want someone to be biased, you can shuffle the questions. It doesn't apply here, but you can. You can have a progress bar at the top. You can allow people to continue, stop, and start the survey, that kind of thing. So a lot of options there. Sadly, not much time to go through that many of them, but they are there for you to explore. In terms of sending the survey itself, so I have already sent this just to get some metrics. But when you first do this, you've got a number of options. The first one is automate it. So Power Automate or Flow gives you an option here to send your survey out. There's templates that you can use. If any of them are what you're looking for, you can absolutely use them. There's quite a few of them here.
Yeah, I noticed the send the server when a case is closed template's disappeared. I went looking for
It's
it.
there.
Oh, it's there.
Oh, this one.
Oh, it's
Dynamics
there.
or, yeah, it is there. You just have to click show more.
Yeah,
It's
right.
hiding.
It's hiding, yeah, the wiggle was.
It's a bit
that's
shy.
good.
If none of that works for you, you can just create one from blank and you can choose your own logic, and that's fine too. So that's one option. The other option is to email, so that's very traditional in a way of sending surveys via email. What you can do here is create a personalized template, again, so you can customize this quite heavily. And you've got options like adding again the name of the person and so on. So you can have a look at up to 15 variables that you can set up. By default, you've got first name, last name, locale, and a title as an example. So you can personalize it. The other thing that you can do as well is change distribution settings. When does your survey allow responses to come in? What can the participants do? Can they submit multiple times? That kind of thing. And you can also get notifications every time a survey response comes in. If you're expecting more than 2,000 of them, maybe don't turn that on. Unless you like emails, in which case do. So a lot of options there as well. And apart from those two, just one thing to be aware of with emails, if you do use that, is if you import contacts, it gives you a little CSV template you can fill in. That will give you the option as well to create those contacts into either Dataverse or Dynamics 365, whatever is being used really in the background. It will give you an option to actually create those as contacts in the system as well, which is quite handy because you can track the responses, so you can see who the person was that filled the survey in.
So when you automate them, for example, you send when a case closes, it's still delivered by email, am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, you will still send a survey invitation through using the Dynamics 365 marketing email service at the back. So yeah, it will just email the person and say, whatever your
It uses those templates.
Yeah.
You can tell it to use one of those templates.
Yeah.
Or you can just do it completely yourself if you want to.
You can say, and this is the other options as well. So you could embed the survey in a website in mind as a pop-up window or a button. It's for choice. The other thing you can do is send a generic link as well. The only thing to be aware of with this is you won't know who answered. It will be an anonymous response to your survey. You will still get wonderful data, but you just won't know who it was. So keep that in mind. You can also have responses by region, language, or any other category. So you could go analytics crazy if you want to. I'm just going to copy that. And the last thing is the QR code, and you'll see those in the summit here today. So we are using Microsoft Forms to actually get feedback on the sessions and the speakers in the summit. And you can actually put that on wonderful banners, like we have today, or you can actually print it out and have it, in my case, at the reception of the restaurant.
So you brought up a question I was going to ask you. You said Microsoft Forms.
Yes.
What's the difference between
Microsoft Forms
and
and
this?
So if you want a very simple form to be filled in, no many analytics, no personalization, branching, logic, all of the things that customer voice does, a form is fine. And that's why the summit is using just a basic form. What was your session? What did you think of the summit? Any other questions? And the responses will just go in, and it's anonymous, and that they are what they are. if you want all of the additional things, languages, branding, logic, all of that stuff, that's customer voice. So think of it as customer voice is a Audi Mercedes car, forms is a
Careful.
Corsa.
But it's
It's a free Corsa. So a free Corsa is better than no Corsa.
Just out of interest, do you know where the data, or where are the responses
They're
stored
not stored-
on
they're
the
not-
forms?
They're not stored in database.
No.
No.
Do you know where they are stored? Just so.
You can't get to it, all you can do is export them out to
Yeah,
Excel.
yeah,
Yeah.
You can, we've got keys now. You can have the forms bounce it to a webhook, and you can have that linked to the Azure function.
You should present
Yeah.
this in this. This is interesting. I want to know. Exactly. So you can do a lot of things. So that's the sending options for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in an anonymous response, just so you can see how that works. Let's say I had a horrible time. So the atmosphere was horrendous. The food was inedible. The service was just abysmal. And the overall experience, I
Hated it,
bad, right? And I can submit that, and that's fine, and that's through the link, and that's my personalized message there going, oops. So that's okay, it's automatic, it's anonymous, it goes into my analytics, and that's great. So in terms of what I get here, a couple of things that you do get from a analytics perspective. The first thing is you're sending invites. So all the invites you have sent out, how many of them have actually been opened, responded, or ignored? So you can see here I've sent 32. I didn't automate anything, but if you had, your flow runs would be here. You can see my response rate isn't great. I'll come back to that. Some responded, some opened it, some didn't even read it. And you can see no one has unsubscribed yet, which they can. One failed. So you can see a number of different options come up here to show me what's happening. If people aren't even opening it, then I know that it's just not working right now as it is. The kind of analytics you get, so you have each question, and then you see how many responses have been responded to and what the ratings are. So you can see an average and then the actual results. If it's things like comments, you see the latest responses for the comments. So we're not doing great, are we? Let's face it. We're struggling. You can export those. You can also see your respondents on the right-hand side. So you can see my response here, the anonymous one. So it's quite good. You can have satisfaction metrics. So as I mentioned, my overall score I am looking at and tracking over time. That's not going well either. So I need to do a lot of work with my my restaurant. And the last thing is alerts. So if the customer satisfaction score is 1, I have customer voice creating an alert in this list, which I can then go through and action. If it's anonymous, not much I can do about it. But if it's someone that I sent the invite to that I know, I could actually get in touch with them and say, I'm very sorry, a free starter on us next time. You are in. So it does have options like that as well, so it's quite handy. This is all wonderful. However, the problem is that when it comes to my survey and when it comes to actually sending it out specifically, I'm not getting much response. 31% is not great. So what I have decided to do is go outside of the customer voice standard out-of-the-box options and create a little tablet Canvas app, which I can use when the customers are getting their bill. I can go up to their table and say, would you mind if I asked you how your visit was? We're trying to improve. And hope they don't, throw wine at me or something. So this is my tablet app that I am using. And let's assume that I have John Smith, who has just finished this morning his business breakfast at the restaurant before going to the keynote. And I go up and say, hi John, thank you for booking with us. Would you mind if I ask you how your stay with us was for your breakfast? And if I am going to do that, I can search for John's booking, and I can find his booking in my system, and I've got a model-driven app that manages my bookings, and I'll show you that in a bit. So I can see John came in at 7:30, and John will do one of two things, I reckon. He will either say, sure, or he will say, keynote's in 10 minutes, I don't have time, leave me alone. So I've got two different buttons here. Let's say John is very nice and he has all the time in the world to tell me how his breakfast went, and I can actually start the survey. And what I've got here is effectively the same version of the survey, but in Canvas app 4. And let's say that actually John loved his breakfast, which makes me very relieved. So let's say the atmosphere was great, so was the food, so was the service. And overall, it was great, and he might say, music was a bit loud. So I'll say, okay.
And here I guess you do have the option of recording some audio and importing.
This is exactly where you would do it, for sure. Yeah, this is definitely the best way to do it. And I can submit that survey, and that will store itself against his booking and against his customer record, and you get the dancing books. I told you I like games. That says, yay, cool. Now, option B is if I look for John's booking again. John doesn't want to talk to me. He's like, I'm out of here. And I'll say, would you mind if I email it to you? And then if you have time, we'll fill it in. And you go, sure. So I can click on email survey invitation. And what the system will do is it will go and get John's email and send him his email to him. And I get my lovely dog doing all the work for me, which is the best thing, really. And then I can start all over again. Which helps me get a few more responses, hopefully. And what will happen is in Outlook, he will get an email from me, like this, which will say, hi John, please let us know how it all went, and start the survey. And if John clicks on this, he will get the same online survey as we had before, but it is being tracked, so it will still be saved against his record in the system, which is quite handy, so I can see what John actually thought. Other things you can do in the Canvas app for anyone that is interested, and this is a preview premium feature, so be warned. You can actually add a little iframe, effectively, that opens up and loads the survey in the Canvas app. Still anonymous, you'll still get the responses in the analytics, but it is preview and it's premium, so beware. But that is an option, and it effectively comes up as a little web page in your app if you fancy that. So that's a cool thing that's there.
So how are you saving the survey response then from Canvas app?
So the survey response itself, so if I look at my bookings, this is my model-driven app that I use to manage the restaurant. If I go into John's booking here, and I go to his customer record, I can see the customer voice does a couple of things. When the responses get saved back, you will get on his timeline two things, because we did both. You'll get the on-site service submission that I did with him, and you also get the survey invite for him. So you will know, looking at his record, that it's gone out. And if you go to surveys as well, you can see the survey there, and you can open it up.
So you're actually submitting it to customer voice, you're not just sending it directly into the records?
Correct. And customer voice will link the survey responses. So what I've done in the background there is I've actually asked it to store the data, and I've customized my model-driven app a little bit to surface that onto his record, so that I can actually see it if I wanted to.
For anonymous surveys, where would it be stored? Because I still need some information from there and link it back to a product, or if they're having a buffet or something else. I want some linking to be in there.
So for anonymous ones, they won't appear anywhere. If you are saving it within customer voice, you will see it under your analytics on the respondents here. So you will see them there, but they won't go anywhere else. They won't be linked to any customer automatically. They will just be in customer voice. So your analytics will be there, but they will just be anonymous. And that brings me to my very important caveat on using the Canvas app for this. Be aware that if you are using a Canvas app to store data about survey responses, they will not appear on your responses in customer voice itself. The reason for this is because, if we go back to here, when you're saving data through the Canvas app, it gets saved in this layer down here. It goes straight into Dataverse, which is where my model-driven app is getting it from. At the moment, there is no arrow going back onto Azure Cognitive Services to take it back to analytics. So for customer voice services picks it all up, does its magic, pulls it through. For the Canvas app, that's not the case yet. If, however, this is something that you would like to see, as would I, you can go to, sorry, bear with me. Let's go through here. You can go to experience the dynamics.com ideas, and you can, if you wish, go into the customer voice topic, and you can actually see when my browser comes up. Sorry, too many windows.
So there's no way of actually getting something directly into customer. If you want something to respond directly into customer voice, you have to go into the utilities and just creating records and tables.
Yeah.
Effectively, with the Canvas app, you have customer voice functions that will save the data, but they will save the data to Dataverse. Yeah, it won't go back into customer voice, unfortunately.
Yeah.
However, as you can see, all of my 15 friends have upvoted this idea to include responses created directly in Dataverse in the analytics. So not just for customer voice, not just for my idea, but do look at experience.dynamics.com/ideas, because there's some great stuff there, and we can influence what gets developed, which is really cool.
I'm a little bit confused about this part, because I'm wondering, does your Canvas apps use customer voices anyway? And so I think I want to swing back. You know?
So if I go back to here, what it does is it will take the customer voice data and store it directly in these tables down here, which customer voice services also uses. But the problem is there is no arrow going up at all. So that's why it's stored in the tables that customer voice also sends data into, but it doesn't go back up.
All right, so if you're using both services, you get your data in one place, and then you stick Power BI or something on top.
Exactly, that's where that comes in.
But if you weren't using customer voice as a channel to receive input, you might as well just stick it straight in another model-driven Power app, get Power BI on top.
Yes, absolutely.
Out of interest, is there a set of Power BI templates? Does anybody know about all that? Sit on the top of that data?
No, for customer voice specifically at the moment, no. But hey, experience.
Let's get creative.
Yeah, the only issue you've got with the tables is you have your response, then you have your response, each of the response questions. So it's not as simple just to manipulate.
So that's all I wanted to cover in the quick 20 minutes about customer voice and Canvas app. But before I open up to any other questions, I have to tell you that sponsored drinks are at the atrium at 5:30, and there's a charity quiz, and I'm captain of the team. So it kicks off at 7 p.m. It's going to be great fun. It's just going to be wild. So please come if you're still around for that. That would be awesome. So thank you for listening. Have you got any questions? If you don't.
I have, and I don't know whether we've got time for it, because we've got like a fraction of a second. But what did you actually put onto that design surface in the Power App there?
And that's what I would have said if I had 40 minutes. It's basically, if you go into the actual app itself, I'll show you extremely quickly. When you actually submit your survey, you have a little function that goes and patches the data. So it's the customer voice server responses. Yeah, you literally put that in. In terms of the invite, if I go one back, the invite itself is actually a customer voice connector.
Right.
So customer voice send survey. There's also a customer voice create invite, I think, or send invite as well that you can use. So that's how it works in the background.
I didn't know customer voice actually. I've done it through Harold today.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you.